Hello, welcome again to our class. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Now, we already started with topics on animal nutrition, and we've decided to start with the minerals. From here, we'll be going into other aspects of nutrition. Now, nutrition is so important in animal production in that about 70% or 75 or even more of rearing an animal from the time you pick it up to the time it's sold or thereabout. If you're looking at it from the commercial standpoint, it's about 75%. And if something is about 75%, you want to give it the best shot. You want to know more about it so that you maximize gains. Now, let's see. Today, we already started with phosphorus, dietary phosphorus. We've looked already at the historical perspective, how it was discovered, and by the 20th century, how it was now they began to see that this is useful for bones and for teeth. And then we looked at sources of, in the same video, we looked at sources of phosphorus. Now, if you've not looked at, not seen these videos, please just go back to the previous videos and then take a look, and then you learn. And I want to enjoy that you subscribe so to get more educational content. If you want to follow, please do share and also like. Now, we looked at the sources being from vegetables, green vegetables. You also see phosphorus being a major constituent of the cells of living organisms, and also you get from animal sources. Now, we've also considered absorption of phosphorus, how it's been absorbed, and factors that influence absorption. Now, today we'll be looking at metabolism. Now, metabolism has to do with the process by which something is broken down. A substance, food substance, for example, is broken down and also rebuilt in a different form. Now, let's look at it briefly before we go deeper. Metabolism has actually two aspects to it: the catabolism and anabolism. In catabolism, we're referring to the breaking down of molecules. It could be from food that have been ingested. After digestion, now you begin to talk about the other processes, breaking it down, and the other part of it being anabolism, then building it up. Let's take, for example, protein taken in meat. For example, taken in meat. Now, this is, first of all, the two parts of it is catabolism and then anabolism. Now, someone consumes meat and it's chewed, mastication and salivation happens, and then there's swallowing. The digestion process starts. In the process of breaking it down, you look at catabolism. Now, the structure of the proteins that have been taken. Of course, the protein is broken down to the smaller molecules of amino acids. And then those amino acid structures are now taken again. There is a restructuring to build. You break down some amino acids and then you build them into others, which becomes the building block to other proteins that you see, which helps to, for the hair, the melanin, the skin, and other things, other tissues of the body. So metabolism involves the catabolism and anabolism. First, the broken down of what is ingested, and then taking them, restructuring them to form building blocks, which are anabolism. So anabolism essentially is the building, while catabolism is broken. So this one breaks down first, and then the rebuilding in a different structure. Now, this is what happens also to food substances, including phosphorus. So the metabolism of phosphorus. Now, phosphorus, first of all, its metabolism is closely related to that of calcium, in that they are regulated by about the same hormones. Now, if you remember the last video, if you didn't watch, please again, I want to encourage you to take a look at it. I talked about phosphorus and calcium being antagonistic minerals. The both of them are not usually in the same tissue or in the same organism in large. They are not in the same blood system. Let's say blood, the fluid carried in the blood in the same quantity. You usually have them regulated. That's what we talk about regulation. Regulation means you control the level of this versus the level of this. More often than not, you have a higher quantity of calcium to phosphorus. Now, the both of them shouldn't be, one must be higher or should be higher than the other, and more often than not is calcium. So more like exclusively one would have to be higher than the other. I don't know how to put it in the language. Exclusively one should be higher than the other. And let's leave it this way. Now let's come back to let's look at the first hormone that affects it. We'll talk about the parathyroid hormone, the PTH. Now what does it do? Essentially it increases the excretion of phosphorus. As phosphorus is urinated, is taken out of the body if it's in excess in urine. Now that's usually because you want to conserve calcium. I said this just a few seconds ago, that calcium is preferred more in the body. It's a larger constituent compared to phosphorus in the bones for formation of bones and health of the bones and teeth. So you usually have about a larger percentage, close to ratio 2 or 3 to 1, more often than not. And then the next hormones that regulate or controls the availability or the presence of phosphorus versus calcium is calcitriol. Calcitriol is essentially vitamin C. Now, or a precursor to vitamin D, sorry, did I say C? It's actually D. Now, it increases intestinal absorption of phosphorus and calcium. Now, calcitriol, like we talked about in the previous video where we talked about metabolism of calcium, helps in determining the rate at which the absorption of phosphorus occurs versus that of calcium. So, an absorption occurs in the small intestine. I talked about this in the previous video. Please look at it. Now, absorption occurs in the jejunum and the duodenum. The duodenum aspect of the small intestine. The small intestine is broadly divided into 3: the ileum, jejunum, and the duodenum. So the jejunum and duodenum is where absorption of minerals like phosphorus occur. Now, the third hormone that regulates the metabolism of phosphorus is fibroblast growth factor 23. Fibroblast growth factor 23. Now, this is just about 3 of them. These are not all the hormones. Very important one, FGF23. Now, what they do is this: it reduces the blood level of phosphates. The phosphate means like the salt of a phosphoric acid, which is the salt of it. It reduces the level of it and reducing the absorption of phosphorus in the kidney. So what it does, it reduces the blood phosphate level by decreasing reabsorption of phosphate. Now, why? Usually when phosphorus is already high in the blood, so what you do is that you reduce reabsorption of it from the kidney. Then also another thing is that it lowers vitamin D activation. Now look at it now. Vitamin D helps absorption of calcium. So in order to reduce absorption of phosphorus, in order to reduce the absorption of what? Phosphorus, it has to affect this one so that this does not increase absorption of phosphorus. In other words, the both of them act in a difference. So while this increases absorption of phosphorus, fibroblast growth factor reduces it when phosphorus is in large quantity, perhaps more than is required in the blood. So what it does is that it reduces the reabsorption of phosphorus in the kidney. What it does is that it will now lower vitamin D, which is calcitriol activation. Now, in summary, phosphorus is stored down in bones, like I said previously, and an excess of it is removed in the urine. Now, when phosphorus is not is in the blood and is getting to urine that is higher, the body knows it, the body's hemostatic system knows it. So there's going to stir up a system that would reduce absorption, reabsorption, and then make sure that excess of phosphorus or any mineral is taken off via urine and via sweat. Now, you've learned this, you want to have a question, you want to ask, please put them on the comment section. You like what you learned, please do a thumbs up, and you share so that others can benefit. Subscribe so you get more educational content. We've already dealt with this historical perspective, the sources of dietary phosphorus. Now we've also looked at the absorption and metabolism. In the next class, we'll be looking at the functions, and we'll also look at the deficiency symptom, and then we'll draw the curtains on phosphorus. I want you to stay tuned. Please, hope to see you in the next class. Thank you so much. Bye.